Thank you guys for joining me back here on the show. We just finished talking about some of the biggest flaws that I saw in the NFC playoff picture just right now, currently where we sit in week 10. Now, looking at the other side of things here in the AFC side of things and looking at the playoff teams and where I see their biggest flaws lying in through the first 10 weeks of the NFL and what they still need to work on for the second half of the year. So, much like we did with the last segment, starting off from number 1 and going through number 7, starting off with the Kansas City Chiefs, their biggest flaw that I've noticed pretty blatantly has been their tackles so far. Really, their left tackle situation, where initially it was Kingsley Suamatia starting, the rookie, starting there at left tackle for them, and he's had a pretty rough start to it. I was pretty surprised that he was starting initially to start the year. Then he eventually was benched for Wayne Morris, and he has been the left tackle so far. But he, over the last couple weeks, hasn't been that much better than Suamatia was. So, you have these two tackles here, but you already benched one of them, and the other one isn't playing too great. And really, in this Broncos game, they gave up a lot of pressure on that side, and even though they brought in some help, Bonito was still getting through and getting to Patrick Mahomes a good amount. It was rushing everything that was going on, and the rhythm and timing of everything just was off with this Chiefs team. And they need to execute at a good level, right? Because they're down, Hollywood Brown, Pacheco for the time being, and other players like that, Rashee Rice. They need to have their offense working at a good rate, and with the left tackle not being as dependable as you would have liked, it messes everything up. And even Jawan Taylor on the other side is definitely playing better, but I wouldn't say has been like locked down either. So it kind of reminds you of that Super Bowl, right, where Patrick Mahomes was running for his life against the Buccaneers. It's not to that degree, but that's kind of where your mind goes to when it reminds you of what, how this offense could look when the protection's not there for Patrick. But really, other than that, they're 9-0. It's not like the problems are huge at this point. But if we're gonna pick one out, it has to be the fact that it's the tackles at this point in time. So that's one thing I'm worried about here for the Chiefs. Then also now going to the number 2 seed here in the AFC so far. Right now it stands as the Buffalo Bills, and the Buffalo Bills' biggest issue for me is the fact that the chemistry with the weapons that they have. They have good players. Amari Cooper was a big addition. Obviously, Keon Coleman, recently has played a lot better as well. So all of that is great. But the fact that they've missed some time here recently, it doesn't sit too well with me. It doesn't sit too well with me because you have the weapons and you want to get into this playoff mode more like sooner rather than later, obviously, right? You want to have the chemistry and the timing down with these guys, and you don't want to just get it incorporated once you get into the playoffs. And with Amari Cooper, I'm sure still learning the offense, right, while he's out, but to have that game speed, to have that chemistry with Josh Allen is going to be huge because Josh can do enough to carry this team, to divisional rounds, conference championships, but in those moments where you need a third down, where you need to ice the game, where you need it to kind of continue the drive to go tie the game, you need to be on the same page with Amari. You don't want to lose a game or lose a down or lose an opportunity because, you thought that he was running a 7-yard out route. Instead, he runs it a little bit further and the throw is short, or he doesn't turn quick enough. Little things like that is what we're talking about, I think, with some of these really good teams where it's not blatant, but some of the little things that they still have to touch up on could make a big difference when it matters most, obviously. So they've been good. Josh has been playing at an MVP level, but getting on the same page as these guys, getting in these high pressure situations like this upcoming week against the Chiefs are situations where I want to see them together. So we'll see if they're able to go after missing the last couple weeks here. But now moving on to number 3 seed here in the playoffs, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, first place in the AFC North, and their biggest flaw to me is whether or not they're able to maintain a sustainable offense, if that makes sense, right? What I mean by that is, everything's been sunshine and roses, right? Russ has come in, great decision by Mike Tomlin. Russ looks like he's playing in Seattle again. The defense is playing complementary football, and they're scoring like 30 points a game since Russell has come into the picture, right? And Pittsburgh's defense really can stifle most offenses, I can confidently say. But what I do worry about and what I do wonder is that how do they perform against high scoring offenses, right? How do they perform against the teams that are up there, scoring 30, 28 points a game? Can their offense go toe to toe with them? And can there be a situation where, this defense really maybe can't get off of the field on third down, or you need this team to score at least like 26 points per game? Are you able to do that and maybe make one or two stops, not continually make these stops like they are accustomed to doing? And we got a little bit of a taste of that against the Washington Commanders, because they were scoring like 28, 29 points a game so far through the year. And the Steelers were right there with them, scoring 28 points and making critical stops at the end. But it doesn't get much bigger than this game coming up against the Ravens, right? They are, in terms of epitome of offense, that's what the Baltimore Ravens are, with the running game, with Lamar, with the receivers as well. Are they able to step up and keep up, honestly, with that Baltimore Ravens offense? Because I do believe that the Steelers defense is better than the Ravens, and the way the Ravens passing game defense has been, there's going to be opportunities there for the Steelers, I believe, to kind of have their chances to move the ball up and down the field. So can they take advantage of that? Can they score, consecutive touchdowns, not settle for field goals? All things like that really distinguish you as a good team. I'm interested to see if the Steelers can do that. I think that's still yet to be decided on. Then, moving on to the fourth team here, we got the Houston Texans. Easily, their biggest flaw to me is their offensive line. Protection hasn't been great for C.J. Stroud this year. That now, their left guard, Kenyon Green, he's out for the rest of the year with a shoulder injury. And currently, where we sit right now, C.J. Stroud is the quarterback that's been hurried the most in the NFL. He's been hurried 47 times, and I think second place is at about 36 right now. And also, C.J. Stroud now is the second highest sacked quarterback in the NFL, right behind Caleb Williams. So it's not a territory, a stat that you want to be anywhere near, honestly, with all the expectations on CJ and this Houston Texans team for the offensive line to be worrying you as much as it is right now is something that doesn't sit well with me, along with, the injuries at wide receiver. Nico Collins should be back this upcoming week, which should help out a lot with that. But the combination of having wide receivers that don't necessarily get open as quickly as Nico and as Stephon Diggs, having those be your guys, and an offensive line that can't really protect you for that long is not a great combination, obviously. So, Nico Collins coming back should help out with that a lot, but it's something that I'm still not so sure it's going to improve that much more as we get on through the year, and it's something that is definitely concerning for me for the Houston Texans. Then, looking at the fifth seed here right now, we have the Baltimore Ravens. I'm not sure if they're going to stay here, but for right now, they're the fifth seed, and their biggest issue pretty easily is their passing defense. They've allowed the most touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They rank dead last in passing defense and allowing passing yards. They've allowed the most passing yards in the NFL through this point, and there's honestly been some close calls with this passing defense, and just the both games against Cincinnati that, if they typically go like they should in those scenarios, and Cincinnati, say, wins both of them, this record looks a lot different than what it is right now. And I'm not saying the Ravens are frauds or anything like that. Their offense is too good to be considered fraudulent. But in close games, the playoffs, you need your defense to stop somebody in the fourth quarter, right? You need them to make a stop. I think most times when they've been in these close games, It's been game-winning touchdowns by Lamar, icing it with Derrick Henry, or just running out the clock with their offense. It's never their defense stopping a team from driving down the field and only needing a field goal or only needing a touchdown to win the game. I don't think I've seen this Ravens defense step up and shut the door completely on the defensive side of the ball, which I think they're going to need to do if I want to consider them real like Super Bowl contenders. Having a defense like that is too egregious for me right now to feel comfortable with it. So that's my biggest flaw for the Ravens as of right now. Then the Los Angeles Chargers right now are the 6th seed in the NFL, and much like the who was it? Much like the Commanders. Much like the Commanders, I think they lack that X factor guy. The game plan, the culture, the attitude, everything is there with Jim Harbaugh. Much like a lot of people expected, right? Jim Harbaugh bringing in his expertise, how he is as a coach is great for this organization, right? He has the quarterback already. He's improved that defense a lot. I think they're allowing the least amount of points per game. And their offensive line is pretty solid as well. But, Lad McConkey, Quentin Johnson, Joshua Palmer, these guys, to compete with, the Travis Kelce's, the Mark Andrews, the Say Flowers, the Nico Collinses of the world, George Pickens, even if you want to throw them in there, I think they're lacking there. And when games get tough, when you're playing very good defenses, you need a guy to go out there and win one-on-ones or draw another defender over. And I just don't think they have that guy right now at this moment. And then lastly, it's almost the same exact situation with the Broncos. Their defense is great. I'll give them a lot of credit. Bo Nix is looking like the second best rookie quarterback in this class. But I think with really only having Courtland Sutton, their defense is great again. But offensively, I need them to give me a lot more security in that regard. They're 26th right now in the NFL in passing yards. So again, they're not having that many explosive plays. So I think you're going to need a couple more than what the Broncos are able to provide right now in the playoffs. And they're sitting right there at the 7th spot. So it might as well be the Broncos or the Colts maybe even if they kind of pick it up here. But the Broncos and the Chargers share similar hesitations for me in that the fact that they're lacking some of those big-name guys that I think you certainly need in the playoffs when the going gets tough and you just need a play. They're going to be doubling Courtland Sutton, so I don't know who else you go to in those moments. But that pretty much does it for the AFC. Those are my biggest concerns with all of the playoff teams up until this moment in the NFL. Leave your guys' thoughts on if you agree with me or if you have your own thoughts and flaws and doubts about some of these teams that I maybe didn't mention. But we have one more segment here to kind of preview and lead us into week 11 here in the NFL. A segment that is sort of like a what-if scenario, but more like a what would happen if this scenario happens. I'll explain a little bit more once we return after the break, but we're going to be looking at 4 games and give you guys a what-if scenario on what could hypothetically happen in these games, and we're going to talk about it. So we'll be right back with that segment. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.